Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of From. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we learned a lot of really interesting things about Victor. First and foremost, it did seem like Victor was a little off, but now in grand scheme of things, we kind of understand why. He is the oldest resident here in this place. He's been here the longest. He's been here since he was a kid. Now, it seemed like, I don't know whether, it's hard to say whether this area is where he was from, because he avoided talking about his past too much when Ethan asked about it. So either him and his family came here, because the thing is, it seemed like everyone that was with him, whatever the circumstances may be, ended up dead. He was the only survivor. And so he says the first two cars. So I'm assuming everyone else there had to be... Well, I don't know whether he's referencing the two cars when he was younger that first popped up there, or was it the thing of they were the residents of that place and then something happened and they got stuck in this pocket dimension thing, whatever the case may be. And because of that, the first two cars were this first two group of people that have popped in. I wonder how many people know Victor's story. How much has he avoided telling people? Because people have come there because despite all that, because we learn later on that it was actually the sheriff who found out about the talismans. So what Donna said 3 years ago has basically been what people have been surviving as this entire time, just hiding away. The sheriff coming here 2 years ago is when they found out about the talismans. He's the one that ended up finding them by some miracle. So it's hide and hope you don't get eaten, or rather ripped to pieces. So... But also, that kind of all plays into my point of right, when you've been here that long, when you've witnessed that much death, of course it's going to stunt him as a kid. Especially because the kid that Ethan's been seeing all over the place is the same kid he saw years ago, but he thought it was all a dream because afterwards he never saw the kid again. But now Ethan is seeing that, so it's right. So I guess it's only little kids can see him. And so Ethan is currently, to our knowledge... Well, because we don't know if Megan ever saw him, but Ethan's at that maybe young enough, imaginative age. Maybe it's kind of that thing of it comes after that kid appears to those who are lonely and desperate, who are about that age, who are lonely and desperate, don't really have many friends. Maybe that's what attracts that kid, or because he's probably a monster in disguise. Maybe, I don't know. Don't know that kid's deal, but maybe that's why. Because it didn't seem like Megan noticed him, but But Victor did, and now Victor's this is the first time he's appeared since I was a little kid. So, sadly, obviously, anytime Victor was around, Ethan and Jim was there. Jim kind of is worried. At first, I was like, Jim, do you think he's drawing pictures of your kid? To be fair, he did draw a picture of your other kid while she was sleeping. He comes off weird, but it's that's why I'm I don't know how many people actually know Victor's circumstances, because the sheriff didn't say anything. I think it's just yeah, he's kind of a bit of weirdo oddball. That's about it. Because it's also yeah, that's Donna's people. So it could be that no one knows how long he's been there, that he's the oldest resident that's been here. Because they cut through, because who's to say every other resident might not have, any residents that have been there prior to know that information are all dead. Probably by now. Because... Obviously, he was a little kid then. It's been decades. That's what I was so wondering about. Because I brought that up, how far could this go back? So at least we know decades. Because I brought up last episode, could this be a Roanoke type of thing? We'll find out a lot of disappearances in history are tied to this in some shape or form. At the very least, because it doesn't seem like this existed and was happening prior to all those people dying and Victor being the only survivor. Specifically, interestingly enough, he was inside that underground little not bunker. Maybe bunker's the right word. I don't know. But that underground area Jade went into last episode. He was in there and he came out of there and he was fine. So that's interesting. He is the one that is noticing what other people aren't noticing. He's the one that's the trees have moved 4 inches. And it's maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. Who knows, in the grand scheme of things. But Victor was trying to track down that kid again, because it's that kid has some answers to all of this. Then also, like, there's the, Faraway tree, I think that's what he called it. He says there's a bunch of those. So it's like, right, there's a lot of weird stuff to this place that doesn't seem like, it seems like the town in general, Donna's people as well, Colony House as well as the town seem to only know some of it. Like, the radios and stuff flickering on, it's like, yeah, like, that happens from time to time. And it doesn't seem like it's like, there's got to be something to that, because Jade was like, oh, let me look into this, because he's like, the fact is everyone's just kind of accepted things as they are, which is like, well, you've been stuck here long enough, you kind of give up hope. Because, and that's what Kenny's trying to protect him from, like, being too optimistic, because, like, if you do not adapt to this place, it's not just the monsters you have to worry about. This place will slowly make you, like, start wondering about every aspect of your life, and basically it's going to drive you mad, you know? It eventually wears you down. Yes, Frank even said to himself, like, oh, I wasn't who I was before I came here. Like, this place eventually wears you down. And he started having to drink and stuff just to compensate. He couldn't fully adapt. Sarah's situation seems to be like, either that's like actually all completely inside her head. This place is kind of messing with her in that regard. We might see her in the box at some point in the future. But if not that, at the very least, these things are communicating, whether it is the little boy in white, or whether it's just the monsters themselves. But once again, they're not active during the day, so how are they able to do that? So, but we see that little boy plays by different rules. He's out and about during the day, granted, only because Victor, despite being an adult now, it's like he can still see him, but it's like he might be an adult, but in his mind, he is, like, I think, still stunted and mentally as a child. So maybe that's why Victor could also see him too. To be fair, it's like, he told Ethan, like, oh, you were chosen, just like that little kid chose me. Like, I think he chooses someone every once in a while to be that person, to be that one survivor. Maybe that's what he's thinking, like, oh, that Ethan's set up to be the only survivor. He needs someone to kind of be that last remaining factor to this place. That there has to be, like, a chosen survivor that kind of carry this torch or something. I don't know. That's just me just pulling stuff out of my ass. I even love at the end of the episode, he's digging up those graves and stuff. And like Donna's like, what are you doing? And he's like, this time I'm getting started. So I'm like, other than that first time, how many times has Victor been through this? Where, like, has he had to bury the entire town before? Like, was that the only time? And he's like, right, he's drawing his pictures, and it's like, right, it is going to happen again. So I might as well get started. Like, I'm going to be the only one that survives yet again, like I did all those years ago. Or has this happened every once in a while? And he's like, well, might as well get started now, because that time's about to come where everyone dies again. Like, does it happen every so often where it's just like a mass, like, genocide of the town? Or is he just basing that on what happened years ago? Because there's just been so many people who've come and gone. Like, once again, like, Donna seems like she has some seniority because she's from 3 years ago. So it's like, is Donna the, like, of the new people, is she like the oldest one that's been here the longest? The way she talked about it, man, it sounds like obviously there were people there at the same time who were hiding and stuff like that. Early days of, like, before they found out about the talismans and stuff. But that could be, like, people who popped up after she was here. Once again, like, not less Victor. I wonder, how did Boyd find all those talismans? Like, did Victor point him in the right direction? I don't know. So many unanswered questions. Obviously, this episode is also, like, a lot of people just trying to find their way forward. Julie, started kind of regretting her decision to come to Colony House because she wanted to get away from her family, because there's a lot that her family hadn't been dealing with. The fact is that, it's like, oh, everything's okay. It's like, everything's not. Julie's like, I'm old enough to recognize you guys were getting divorced. What was this trip supposed to be, like, a little bit of a hurrah before you sat me and Ethan down? She's like, Thomas died. You're not the only ones that grieved him. We lost our brother too. But at the very least, like, you still have us. Why isn't that enough? And I think that is harsh, because I get it, but it's also like you feel like, oh, I'm not seen. Like, the fact is, I feel like I'm always the one that's making a mistake. Like, oh, I have to, because you're always right, Mom. Like, I can never do anything, because anything I do is just me making a stupid mistake because I'm just a kid, right? But it's also like, it's unfair for her to put that on her mom, being also like, oh, like, I know what you went through, but she still, it's like, oh, you're not in a position. Yes, you lost your brother. I'm not trying to take away from that, but you also if people handle grief in their own way, I'm sure you handled it your own way. Like, for your parents to not fully be okay is understandable after losing a child. Like, I don't think that wound ever closes, especially because, like, they lost your brother before he was even a baby. When he was a baby, so it's like they never even got a chance with him, you know? And that was even a thing for Tabitha, wondering, like, oh, is this our punishment? And Jim was like, wait, what? It's like, I'm here drinking tea out of a dead woman's cup. The fact is, we're living in her house, the same house where a child died, where we have, like, you know, 2 children. We have a teenager and an actual child. Plus, we actually had a child, Thomas, die when he was a baby. So it's like, it's almost like for her, it almost feels, she felt like this was almost like, it's almost like a cosmic fuck you. At least kind of almost, I think, how Tabitha was kind of treating it, because it's like, we just happen to end up in the one house that had a child die here, and considering their kind of messed up family dynamic. Because I think it's the thing of Jim's trying to make it seem like everything's okay, and Tabitha felt like that was the wrong way he handled that, because it's like, you saying that makes it almost feel like, oh, you're the one that's got it figured all out. We're the ones that are just messed up and in the wrong. But it was just Jim's defense mechanism, because he was like, I'm scared, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. And he just tried to keep on a brave face, because it was, you know, his defense mechanism, his way of kind of keeping up these walls, because it was the only way to keep himself together from falling apart. And he, you know, apologizes to Tabitha later on. I'm like, I'm sorry I ever made you feel like that way in any shape or form. It's like, but, you know, we'll find out. Oh, but Tabitha was like, don't worry, we'll figure this out together as a family. It's like, it's going to be interesting, especially because, like, you know, now Sarah's been told, oh yeah, kill that kid. I'm like, why? It seems like that little kid has taken such an interest in Ethan, so why kill him? Once again, not less this is Sarah's own delusions, because once again, these things can't get inside your head, but this is during the daytime, so maybe she's just in such a fragile enough state mentally, her guard is down, so they can get, like, once they've broken through, they can always get to you, or just like she has some kind of mental issue that's going on right now that's coinciding with, like, all, maybe, like, it's an issue that, it's something that she had mentally that's gotten agitated and aggravated because of the circumstances they're in. I don't know. Her brother hasn't really talked too much about it. Obviously, he wants to keep her home after knowing everything that she did. It does make her working at the restaurant that much more jacked up. It's like, oh yeah, like, especially when Jim was like, oh, like, as in, like, Miss Lou, as in, like, the nursing home, like, hospital thing. It's like, yeah. So it's kind of like, it's eating away at her guilt, because it's like, right, you robbed her of her husband, you killed 2 innocent people, you also, well, 3, but you directly killed 1, and you got the other 2 killed by leaving the door open. And so, and one of those was, you know, Miss Leo's, Kenny's dad, you know, so it's like, Kenny's lost his father, his mom's lost her husband, so. And now she's being told to kill Ethan, but at the same time she's having a seizure, so not unless that was her trying to reject what was being forced upon her, and because she was kind of rejecting it, that was their way of kind of punishing her, like, no, you're going to do it. Or once again, maybe that stems from some medical condition, or like maybe it's just a thing of, it's a combination of the two. What's real and what isn't when it comes to Sarah is going to be interesting to see. But another aspect to this episode is a conversation with Boyd and the priest, because it's the situation of the aftermath of the whole Frank thing. It's like, right, him ripped to pieces, and obviously Boyd is going to take that all on himself. He's the one that took the body across town, even made sure, like, while he was carrying around town when he saw Ethan and Jim, he made sure to cover up Frank's foot and also turn to the side so Ethan couldn't see the blood on his shirt. Wanted to keep some of that innocence from that kid before, like, the cruel realities of, well, the reality they live in. And so he ends up taking the body, and he's like, yeah, bury him with his family. And he's like, okay, you want to come to this? Oh, you're not coming to the sermon? It's like, oh, and he starts laughing. He's like, what? Oh, like, are you going to talk about, like, in the eulogy or whatever, are you going to talk about the fact is of how much you wanted him dead? And the father's like, oh, were you did that make you feel better? And he walks away. And so he's like, right, you need me to be your punching bag. I get it. But I'm sorry, you don't have the luxury to like grieve or just break down. You are the only one. You're the reason why it's like the amount of people, we've had some deaths roughly for the past couple of days, but it's like that has been nothing compared to how many bodies were dropping left and right before you got here. And it talks about someone. Now that someone could either be a significant other, like a wife, like Ellis's mom, or that could be in reference to like maybe a daughter that he had. Either way, he lost someone. Like, I guess they were in a situation and he found the talismans, and her sacrifice is what led to, I guess, maybe that discovery in some shape or form. So he was protecting maybe him and Ellis, but whoever this person was, like I said, either a mother or daughter, was murdered by these things. And so he's never really had a chance to grieve because he's so busy protecting everyone else. It's like, right, you're the one that's the leader here. You're the one that has to get us out of here. He's like, so you need me to be your punching bag. Okay, whatever you need to do to get your shit together, because I'm sorry, but you have to be the strongest amongst us because you're the only one that can lead us. Because if you fall apart, all of this falls apart because you brought order to this town, you know? So I wonder, is he also the one that came up like, because I think, because they said it last episode, the colony and town aspect of it, he's the one that like said like everyone has to decide. Like Donald said last episode, like, nope, that was your decision. You're the one that came up with the rules. So he brought some form of order to all of this chaos. So that's why the father's like going so hard into pain against him. So the fact is he's trying to, like, I guess because, right, I haven't done the typical trying to get to know the neighbors thing, that being Jim and his family. He wanted to get to know them better because it's like, right, we're kind of all in this together. Like he says at the diner, we're all a family in this, so we have to be in this together. So he wanted to get to really know Jim a little bit more. It's like, there's just been one thing after another, so they haven't been able to slowly bring them into this. It's like, it kind of happened all at once. He kind of got whiplash when it came to like them stumbling into this. We also learned an interesting thing too, because of Kenny when he was explaining it to Jade. Apparently, everyone was in very, very different spots when on the map, on the U.S. map. Like Kenny and his family were in Texas. Someone else was God, I forgot, but he referenced like everyone was in different states, and then they saw the tree at different places. So it's like, yeah, this is some pocket dimension type of thing of like this takes you to like some secluded like pocket dimension where you're like locked in, you know. So that's, and it is a thing of, we know time moves because people do get older, because Victor obviously got older despite getting trapped in all of this. So but it kind of, you know, which I thought that was kind of a fascinating thing. But like I said, that ties into Jade, who's trying to figure this out, because he told Kenny what he saw, but Kenny was like, yeah, everyone sees stuff. He's like, no, I've taken enough drugs to know when I'm hallucinating. That was something else. So what Jade saw might be a piece to this puzzle too. Like certain people, like it seems like Ethan might have some part to play in this. Victor definitely has some part to play in this. And what Jade saw was something I guess he wasn't supposed to see, or I don't know. There's like, he's like, even him saying like, oh, someone did this to us, so I'm going to figure it out, because that's his way of processing and dealing with it. But maybe along the way he might find something, especially because they do that whole thing of, once again, the radios like kind of, it's like, yeah, it just kind of turns on. And the one that was in the police station, the sheriff's station, Jade took, because he's like, probably because he's kind of a software techie guy, so maybe he's thinking like he could, you know, check out the frequencies and see if there's something that can be done, like, you know, if you adjust the frequency, maybe when those things come on, like you have a time frame that maybe you can like talk to something or someone through that, or I don't know. We'll see what he discovers. The fact is, whoever this is, like I brought up, whoever it was that Boyd lost, I believe that's probably why Ellis and his dad are at odds. Maybe it was kind of a similar thing where like Jim and Tabitha, maybe there was kind of a similar thing between potentially Boyd and whoever they lost. I'm assuming that has everything to do with the fact is that Ellis ended up going to Colony House. Like him and his dad aren't on the best of terms. Like, aside from, like, moments here and there, like, other than, like, the first 2 episodes, they have not really been in any scenes together. It's just kind of like Julie's gonna be okay, Ellis is at the house, he's gonna take care of her, so. Which he does. Him and Fatman end up getting, Julie her own space, her own bed, because it is a place that's like, cool, everything is everybody's, except for Trudy, who kind of makes, oh, everybody's stuff is kind of mine. Because they talked about some guy that had Armani, who sadly died. I think they're saying the character's name was Charles, and or Charlie, and it's like, right, that person died, and there's an Armani shirt they left behind that Trudy goes out of her way laundry day to make sure she hides it so no one else can wear it. So she can wear everybody else's stuff, but she wants the Armani shirt just for herself. So, didn't she name her pillow Meredith? I think that's what it was. It was something like that. Trudy definitely seems like an oddball. To be fair, it seems like Colony House is just full of, like, kind of I think the artsy kind of oddballs. I think the biggest oddball being Victor, but we now know, like, there's circumstances to his oddness that, extenuating circumstances, so. Oh yeah, I didn't dive too much into that tree. I touched on it a little bit, but yeah, the fact is that Victor could throw a rock in it and then, like, it teleports, and he says, like, right, it could go anywhere, and I'm like, I wonder, do those have some correlation to do with, I assume that would have something to do with why anytime you go in, no matter where you go in this place, it loops you back in somewhere, But he says those trees can either take you somewhere, when you throw a rock in there, it's either you'll end up landing somewhere nearby or super far away. So I'm like, I'd assume that also means they're potentially the key to getting out of here, but they're probably part of the prison aspect of keeping you locked in there. Like, if you try to leave, you'll loop out or whatever, so. I'm really curious also, too, like, what is the interval between new arrivals? Like, has it gotten faster and faster, or does it always stay at a certain pace? Because the way Victor, he said, like, oh, the first 2 cars, so maybe there's a cycle to it. The fact is that there's a new cycle beginning because 2 cars came here, both, Toby and Jade, as well as Jim and his family. So, once again, that hasn't happened in a long, long time. But maybe that's in reference to Victor, saying that hasn't been in a long, long time. Or maybe it has because, like, that was from people who had been here way less time than Victor. So maybe every once in a while it does happen. But like I said, maybe that's the start of a new cycle of whatever this all is. I'm just spitballing and throwing a whole lot of stuff, trying to see what sticks. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.